I'm excited because the postman has delivered me something other than a bill. It's a Pixie transceiver kit. But not just any Pixie transceiver kit, it's a review unit from CR Kits. There's something a bit different to it. For instance, not just the one 7023 MHz crystal, but two crystals. One for 7010 and the other for 7030. The latter will be particularly useful for US general class hams who can't operate on 7023 and for QRPers, particularly in Europe, where 7030 is often used for QRP activity. Let's put it together, give it a test and see how it goes on air.
Here's what you get. It's a rectangular rather than a square board like you get with the usual Pixies. The instructions are online only. I'll give you a link to the CR Kits group where you can find them. They are fairly rudimentary, basically a circuit diagram, component layout, a little bit else, but there is a lot more detail on a couple of YouTube videos that take you through the construction step by step. Another thing about this Pixie version I liked is the potentiometer isn't just something that you adjust with a screwdriver on the circuit board, but a full unit with a knob supplied. Antenna connection though is not the standard BNC but an SMA. Personally, I would have liked the BNC, but the SMA is lighter and adapters are readily available, so no big problem.
Parts like this. Okay.
Alright, this is the video. There's two videos. This is part one. About 20 minutes long.
Sockets. For one is for crystal, another is for Q2 transistor. So you can cut.
So it looks like that they use sockets, IC sockets for the crystals, so you can change them, which is good.
Looks good.
And possibly one of the transistors.
Yeah, for crystal, you need to cut the center pin. 9 volt battery. 9 volt battery.
Looks like it's designed to be run off a 9 volt battery. Personally, I'd go for something like 12 volts. Just hopefully it won't be too much voltage to blow the thing up, but yeah, 9 volt batteries are quite expensive and you probably won't get a lot of life out of them unless you're mainly listening.
Parts out. You can compare the parts with the parts list, and totally you have one PCB, 2 crystals, 3 black capacitors, 10 green capacitors. This is IC socket, 8 pin, 6 pin, SMA, audio connector 1, audio connector 2. This is for headphone, this is for key. And the inductors, 1, 2, 3. And resistors, 2, 3, 47K, this is 1K.
Just a tip, the introduction video mentioned that one of the sockets supplied was 6 pin, but in my kit they were both 8 pin, so just means that I need to cut the 2 end pins off. These sockets are used, well, these half sockets, because you have to cut one of them in half, One's used for the crystal and the other for the final transistor. So that's easier to replace if it blows up. Presumably that's why they've got the socket there. And you can also experiment with different transistors. This is the completed audio amplifier part, and like all good kits, there's a testing process before we're completely done so that faults can be isolated rather than having to troubleshoot the whole lot. In this case, it comprises just applying power and plugging in some headphones, which I have done, and the video suggests using tweezers, but you can just use your finger under here, and if it picks up noise, then you know the LM386 audio amplifier stage is working. And as you can hear, it is. It's a little thing, and it is mentioned in the video where it's got 101 there, 100 picofarad. The actual capacitor to use and it's supplied is 121 or 120 picofarad. That just improves the harmonic suppression a bit. This is the completed unit. Let's connect headphones, battery, antenna and key and see if it functions. I've got the 7010 MHz crystal in. Interestingly, the frequency is much higher than that, nearly 10 kHz up. When I put in the other crystal for 7030, it's similar. That signal you hear in the background, that's the oscillator on receive. This is one of my other crystals from another Pixie kit, 7023. So let's put that in there. That also oscillates high at around 7029. But the keying isn't as good with that crystal as it is with the ones supplied with the kit. Right here is the crystal socket, or what I've used to mount the crystal. And if you have a look, there's some bad solder joints. Maybe that could be the problem. So let's just reheat them and see if the frequency changes to something nearer to what it should be. Now, with the 7030 crystal installed, we're now exactly on frequency. Here I've got the 9-volt battery connected up. Output power is less than 200 milliwatts. That's much less than I got with 12 volts. So I really recommend, if you can, use 12 volts with this project. The fault that we had with the badly soldered crystal socket indicates that sometimes when you make an error, the thing still appears to work. In this case, we had almost full output from the transmitter. It was just that the crystal was well off frequency because there is probably no capacitance or very little capacitance, and that would have shifted the frequency much higher than normal. This is testing the VK5PH Web SDR a distance of about 600 kilometres. It's late afternoon and I'll now send a signal. It's just after 5 PM, still light, but signals are coming up on 40 metres. I've got 3 crystals, 2 of which were supplied with the kit, and another 7023 with the Pixie. If you were to buy this Pixie kit, which comes with 7010 and 7030, it's a good idea to get another Pixie kit, the more common types that have a crystal for 7023. Anyway, 7023 is busy, so we'll try another crystal. Hopefully that frequency is clear. Put out some calls and see how long it takes to get a reply. Calling on 7030. This will be an attempt to make a random contact. I haven't told anyone that I'm on. $559. That was a contact with VK3BAP. Not as good as the first, and a shorter distance, probably about 70 or 80 kilometres. But still, he responded to my CQ call, which for something like this, with only a few hundred milliwatts, is pretty good. So we'll keep calling and see if anyone else comes back. And by the way, it's just got dark, being after 6 PM. $559. Like with all commercially available Pixie kits I've seen, this one doesn't incorporate mods that others have found worthwhile. These include LA3ZA's broadcast interference reduction and G4JQT's audio top cut. With the first one, if you look at the Pixie circuit as supplied, the current that goes into the LM386 is very low. It's via a 1K resistor, when normally the value you'd use would be around 10 ohm. And there's another change you make to the connections on one of the diodes. That reduces the broadcast interference somewhat, if that's an issue. Also, if you are using headphones especially, the audio from the Pixie is very hissy. There's a lot of high frequencies like 2, 3, 4, 5 or more kilohertz, and you can reduce that to make it a bit easier to hear CW signals by connecting a resistor and capacitor across the circuit. I think it's about a 1.8k resistor and a 10 nanofarad capacitor. Anyway, details of that and more Pixie mods are in G4JQT's Pixie Max. I'll have links to both these down below. But I do suggest these mods, I do recommend them, and you might want to incorporate them before assembling the kit so you aren't having to pull things apart and make changes like I did. So that's my review of the Pixie2023 from CR Kits. Thanks to Adam Wrong BD6CR for the review unit. The performance is as good or as bad as you'd expect from any other Pixie, but the features that I liked about it were the RIT control that you could vary without having to use a screwdriver, and especially the interchangeable crystals, with a good selection of frequencies of 7010 and 7030. Having those two crystals makes the extra frequency agility much better than the normal Pixies you see, which are fixed just on 7023. And as noted before, the benefit of the 7030 crystal is that it's suitable for US general and technician class hams, as well as being a good frequency to use in Europe with the QRP activity found on or around there. I should mention it's a very quick kit to build. The thing that will take all the extra time is waiting for responses to CQ calls. Although I had a good run of contacts in the early evening when I got on air, there were times when I was calling in the middle of the day and I wasn't getting any responses. The main limitations with these kits are their low power output, their receiver, which is both broad and not particularly strong where there's a close AM broadcast station that can overload the receiver, and also the lack of frequency agility, though the 2 crystals with this kit are much better than just the 1 crystal with most other Pixies. If you want something for serious operating, then something bigger and better than this will be more suitable, but if you just want something simple and cheap to build and can get contacts with persistence, then this kit is definitely something to consider.
Every successful QRP outing needs a good antenna. To get some ideas, check out my books, Hand-Carried QRP Antennas and More Hand-Carried QRP Antennas. For more information, visit my website VK3YE.com or search their titles on Amazon.